Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of The Good We Share. I'm your host, Kate Schaefer, Director of Member Engagement and Communications at the American Fraternal Alliance. I'm excited to welcome today's guest, but before I do, a quick disclaimer that this episode is part of our sponsorship. And while we won't be talking shop the whole time, you will get to know more about this associate member company and the work they do to support the fraternal sector. So without further delay, I'm excited to welcome Brent Williams, the founder and CEO of Benekiva. Hi, Brent. How are you today?
How are you? Doing good.
I'm doing great, and I appreciate you. We've had a few hiccups trying to get this podcast recorded, but we are here today and ready to rock and roll.
Ready.
I'm so glad you're able to join me, and I know our listeners are going to be excited to learn more about the work that you do, the work that Benekiva does. So let's start with some easy topics first. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about Benekiva, and the community you serve?
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Brent Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of Benekiva. And prior to Benekiva, I was an investment financial advisor. I managed a very substantial practice, about 300 million assets under management. And when you have a practice that large, you go through multiple carriers, claims, and servicing processes. And on one hand, I was constantly apologizing for an archaic process to which I had no control over. While on the other hand, I'm trying to serve, maintain, and gain clients. And so it started me down this 3.5-year research path where over that 3.5 years, I sat with 147 claims and servicing staff and literally just did the 5 why, 5 how process to identify what this platform needed to look like and what problems it needed to solve. And then invested some of my own money, put together a team, and went and built Benekiva.
And here you are today.
Yeah.
I read on your website that Benekiva started with the belief that insurance can do better for people. Does this belief really align with your company mission, and how is that meaningful to you?
It's literally the catalyst for Benekiva. As you have a practice that large, and I said you go through multiple carriers, claims, and servicing processes. One of my friends, who was a client, passed away, and they had about 8 different accounts with 3 different insurance carriers. So they had like 5 or 6 at one carrier and then another couple at 2 separate carriers. And from the time we started the claim process to the time all 8 accounts were fully settled, money's distributed, it was about a 9-month process. And I thought to myself, we have to do better. This industry has to do better. When I was selling these products, nobody buys insurance hoping to use it. But the reality is, when it comes time to use it, they expect it to be quick and efficient. Just pay the claim. And so that's what really started me down the 3.5-year research path. Was I wanted to identify, was the claims process a carrier issue? Was it a beneficiary issue? Was it communication issues? Like, what was the breakdown? And ultimately, over that 3.5-year period, I learned it was all of the above. There was multiple problems that were issues with how to process claims. And the one thing that I learned that is often not thought of in the consumer side. I would argue that if you ask a consumer whether an insurance company wants to pay a claim, most consumers would say no, they don't want to pay claims. Well, I learned the opposite. Carriers absolutely want to pay claims, but they want to pay the right claims to the right people. And that's a different scenario that you have to solve for. And, when you look at the fraternal side, the membership, they absolutely want to take care of their members. There's no 2 ways about it. They want to take care of their members. But when you look at the overall claim process, all the rules, the regulations, the complexities, the idiosyncrasies, it's a difficult process. And what our goal was to make that difficult process seamless and easy for the beneficiaries and carrier claim staff.
I love that you did the research to think of the consumer, but then to think of the people administering that output, because claims personnel are some unthanked heroes in the insurance world. And they just, they do the best they can with what they have. And I love that that was your motivation and the story behind that. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so your organization's been around since 2017, correct?
We launched in the marketplace. We went live with our first client December of 2018, launched in the marketplace for sale 2019. Yeah.
And in the better part of that time, you have worked with Fraternal. So how does being part of the Fraternal world and working with mission-driven organizations shape how you do business?
I mean, this Benekiva was created on a mission. So anytime I get the chance to work with mission type businesses, it's just a joy. Oftentimes in the fraternal world, unfortunately, some of the carriers aren't large enough for a lot of the vendors to even come and talk to them. And one of the things I always set out at Benekiva, I said, I never want Benekiva to get to a point to where a small insurance carrier looks at Benekiva like, well, they're too big for us. We're not too big for anybody. We have fraternal clients. We have clients that have 2 claim staff, and that's perfectly okay with us. We have a new offering even coming in 2026 that's specifically designed around fraternals. So making it more accessible, making the technology more accessible to these smaller carriers.
I love that. And I know that technology can be overwhelming to an insurance carrier, especially fraternal life insurers, but they are entering the space and they're, getting a little more comfortable in the area. Like what, I guess, advice would you have to smaller carriers or even mid-sized carriers looking to kind of break into an opportunity like this?
Advice, I would say Nike, man, just do it. It's one of those things where, the insurance industry as a whole lags behind a lot of other industries. And, technology's to the point to where even 5 years ago, what we thought were complications aren't complications anymore. I can remember when we first started selling Benekiva and we'd say, we connect to green screen policy admin systems. People were going, what? You can connect to those? Yeah. I mean, all we need is the data out of them. We don't, taking shifting some of those paradigms to let the carriers know that the technology has evolved so much that some of those complications or things that stopped you from doing technology in the past aren't an issue anymore. They really aren't.
And what's the relationship like between business success and community impact for Benekiva? Do you get to celebrate the positive impact your business has on communities, whether that's the life insurance space or if it's just in the fraternal area? Like, do you guys get to enjoy that impact?
Unfortunately, we don't a lot of the times because one of the things I set out Benekiva to be was I said, we need to be a fully white labeled solution so that the end user, the policyholders, beneficiaries, claimants, they actually feel like they're dealing with the carrier themselves. So, when we configure our platform, we configure it to look, feel, and act like you're dealing directly with the carrier. I often say to our team, if we do our jobs correct, no one knows Benekiva's even involved. And, that's good for the carrier side, but from the wins perspective, we celebrate them internally. Like some of the stuff we have clients that will say, they processed a claim at 10:38 p.m. at night using nothing more than their company iPhone, right? That's a huge win, right? Can you imagine being a beneficiary at 10:39 p.m. at night and getting a text message saying the funds will be in your account in 48 hours? That's just really cool stuff, and we've got countless carriers, claim staff processing claims while sitting at their kids' ball games. This technology just allows the work to be done anywhere, anytime, any device.
That's awesome. And you just talked a little bit about your team. Who all does that include at Benekiva?
Oh my gosh. I think we've got, I don't know. I'd have to look. I think we're at 100 employees, a little over 100 employees.
Are you really? I was so nice. It was that large. You guys have really grown.
Yeah, we've grown substantially. Yeah, we've got we've got clients as big as the biggest clients in the world, all the way down to some clients that you've probably never even heard of, little fraternals and little insurance carriers that, our platform works for small, medium, and even the largest carriers in the world. So
That's good. You're looking out for the little guy, and we have a few of those, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you kind of talked about, that instant impact with the claims being resolved within that minute and that evening. What kind of ripple effects do you see inside your company working in the insurance sector?
The cool thing about being a technology, an external technology to a lot of these carriers is a lot of times they look to you for some of the advice on their own projects. I tell the team often that it's really an honor when we're brought in as part of the carrier's road mapping process. That's an honor to me. To me, that's, they know, like, and trust you enough that they're willing to let you into their world for a little bit and let you know kind of where they're going, where they see their business going. And we can help because, we probably have a client that's like, if they're looking to go on a big growth phase, we've got clients that are probably in that next phase of growth, and we've seen what they went through. So I think that's really cool when you get to a point to where you're known as a true partner as opposed to a vendor. I tell the team all the time, we're not vendors to our carrier partners. We are partners to them. The moment we become a vendor, I tell the team we've lost. We got to go fix that.
I love that. And that very much aligns with the Fraternal mission. And, it's more of a relationship versus, it's life insurance, but there's also like the family being part of a community and that connection. So that's really important. What else would you like our listeners to know about Benekiva?
Oh, I mean, it's I don't I don't know. I mean, I don't want to try to sell or anything like that. It's the reason we're involved with the Alliance. It goes back to that original mission. We want to be able to help all sized carriers. And, we've got the technology to be able to do that. And we've got, we went through some changes ourselves. When you grow that fast, we had some bumps in the road. We had some areas where we had to slow down in order to speed up. And those are all lessons that we can bring to our carrier partners and help them throughout their growth process. But I mean, it's just, we're a wonderful company, got great people, and our solution is, and I'm a little biased, I mean, it's the best in the industry.
You're allowed to be. You're the number one fan. I love that.
I did the research, and part of the research was researching who was out there before. And I can tell you with uncertainty that you can put our solution up against any of the competitors and we will beat them all.
And I love your comment just then about you have to slow down, speed up, because a lot of fraternals are going through a transformation right now. And you can kind of get stuck in those pain points that you're working through. And you're right. Just to take a step back, re-examine what you're doing, and then hit the ground running. So that's really great advice.
There's a lot of fraternals. I think you're going to see this more where fraternals are combining or coming together. And the interesting part about that is, it's one of the solutions that we're gonna release is, we, as part of our solution, we can take. Or, for example, I'm just throwing examples out there. Let's say you had 2 or 3 fraternals decide they want to merge together some way, shape, or form to distribute costs. Well, with technology now, we can connect to all 3 carriers separately, have one single Benekiva instance that serves all 3 separate carriers, and it looks like you're still dealing with all 3 separate carriers, right? That's the true value of technology these days. In the old days, that wasn't the case. If you bought a technology, it fit this carrier. And then if you wanted to add it to the other 2 carriers, you could, but it still looked like carrier A. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't work. I mean, if you're wanting to keep your own brand with your members and things like that, that solution won't work. Whereas, our configurable platform is that it really doesn't matter. We could have three different carriers on one system, and you have three different experiences.
And you're right. We are definitely seeing these fraternal partnerships come together to really strengthen the sector, bring together these smaller carriers that just need the access to scale and resources. And so I think that's a really great part of our sector is that everyone's so collaborative. And, you see it on the broader life insurance industry as well. But the fraternal sector is like a nice little piece of heaven of the life insurance space.
And it makes sense. I mean, from a business perspective, it just makes sense. I mean, when you get two or three carriers or even more together, all of a sudden you can have this shared services model where, you can buy in bulk now because you're three little carriers is like a large one, right? Or, and you can share services, you can share a call center, there's all kinds of scale that you can get when you go through that process. But you have to do it right because again, if you got three different carriers, you probably want to maintain the three different brands, right? And the three different missions, which with technology, it's a lot easier to do that. With some of our tier one carriers, we've almost become this orchestration layer, this data and flexible API orchestration layer across the entire organization. And if you think about it from that perspective, a tier one carrier has basically 20 little carriers inside of it, right? Because they went and bought multiple carriers in the past. So all that technology has to come together some way, shape, or form. So we looked at it and said, gosh, I mean, if we're doing it for the tier ones, why couldn't we do it for the smaller carriers, the fraternals, and just give them one single platform, but configure it to three different experiences?
You are speaking the fraternal lingo, that's for sure, Brent. Well, before we close, this has been a fantastic conversation. I do have these signature 5 questions that I'm going to be asking guests. And I promise these are fun. They don't require a long response, just first idea that comes to your heart, okay?
All right.
All right, so question 1, what's the most impactful project or volunteer work that you've been a part of?
Oh, I'm really big into, people are going to laugh about this. I love dogs and I'm really big into rescues. So there's a little rescue, they call it Kayakota. It's about 15 miles away and I'm really involved in that. Matter of fact, Benekiva supports, from a charity perspective, we actually built their website for them. Our team built it and just dedicated it to them. So I love dogs.
That's amazing. Your face lights up when you talk about Benekiva, but it really lights up just now when you're talking about dogs and the Humane Society. So I love that.
That's awesome.
All right, question 2. What was your dream job as a child?
It's funny. As a child, I told my mother at a young age I was going to be a judge. Oh, yeah. I told her I was going to be a judge. And as I got older, life threw me a curveball. I did end up being a police officer. So early in my career, I was a police officer on the Tri-County Drug Task Force.
Wow.
So I was one of the guys that would bust down the door and handcuff folks but I learned that that's a young man's game. So it's not something that you can do forever. And, that's what I was going to be as a judge. But I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. I've had a couple successful companies in the past, which put me in a position to be able to invest my own money into Benekiva. But I was just talking about this the other day. Like my first business was in the 3rd grade. I had a little candy shop in the 3rd grade. And I learned so many lessons. I learned a lesson of supply and demand. I learned a lesson of repeat customers. It's interesting. So I've just always had that entrepreneurship brain. And if you look at my LinkedIn, it's funny because I go from Benekiva to a financial advisor to I owned automotive repair shops. I was a police officer. But what's interesting is every single one of those journeys ties to the other in some way, shape, or form.
I have a 3rd grader, and that candy shop idea is fantastic, especially for 3rd graders. I mean, that is just very, you knew your target audience in that. All right, number 3, what's your favorite meal to make in the kitchen?
Oh, I love to make enchiladas.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a huge Mexican fan.
okay.
Matter of fact, I will judge a Mexican restaurant by their enchilada sauce. So,
Oh,
in any new Mexican restaurant I go to, the first thing I order is enchiladas. And if you make a good enchilada, then I'll come back for the rest of your food.
okay. And is it like the spicier the better, or is it just have to have a certain
It just
taste
has to have
to
a
it?
really good taste. I'm not the type that likes, when you put it in your mouth and your tongue gets on fire, but I do like a good spicy taste,
Yeah.
So,
Learning so much about you during these questions. What book would you recommend everyone read at least once?
oh gosh, there's a bunch of them. One of them that when we first started Benekiva, we made most of the people read it when they came on to Benekiva. I think it was called Delivering Happiness, which is the Zappos story. And basically it's about our number one core value of Benekiva is deliver wow. Deliver wow. Right. And the idea that came from that book. It's about becoming overly obsessive about customers, because the reality is without customers, nothing exists. And I tell the team all the time, everybody in Benekiva is in sales. And in my opinion, that's of any company. And whether you're an insurance carrier, whether you're a Mexican restaurant, right? It doesn't matter. Everybody is in sales, and just be obsessed with customers.
This is a sidebar question, but how did you come up with the name Benekiva?
It's a great story. So we were brainstorming, and there were 4 of us, and we were all brainstorming. And I said to the team, I said, we need a name that doesn't pigeonhole us to a certain process, right? We couldn't call it Life Claims 360, right? Because then people will think all you do is life claims. So we threw a bunch of words up on the whiteboard, and we had beneficiary, policyholder, and insurance, all these, insurance words. And I was telling the team, I said, we need a name that doesn't really mean anything, but it does mean something. And I said, one of my mentors is Suku Radia, and he sits on the board of this company called Workiva, and he also sits on the board of Nationwide Insurance, or he did. I don't know if he still does. But anyway, I said, we kind of need a name kind of like Workiva. It doesn't really mean anything, but yet it sounds good. Well, one of the people in the meeting Googled Kiva, and they said Kiva actually means sacred chamber for all. And immediately I said, I got it. Benekiva, sacred chamber for all beneficiaries.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's what Benekiva Capra
did, but I love that. And that really ties in well with the fraternal model and atmosphere. I love that. Okay, final question. If you had a hype squad cheering for you right now, what would they be celebrating?
Cheering for me? I would say the team. Okay. We got great people here. I was just in the meeting prior to this one, and they said, well, what do you do, or what is your job? And I said, my job is really 3 things. One is to evangelize Benekiva, right? Tell the story to whoever will listen, whether that's clients, prospects, this podcast, right? Tell the story to whoever will listen. I said, the second part of my job is to be leveraged as a tool, right? I want the team to leverage me as a tool. If you need me to have a conversation or block and tackle over here, whatever. I said, but the third thing, and what I believe is the most important part of my job, is I said, my job is to be the dumbest person at the table, and I do a very good job at that. So I have an amazing team around me, and I let them do their thing. And, if you've ever met any of the folks on the team, they're just great, wonderful human beings. They're just great people. And, I'm a firm believer that rising tides raise all boats, and I learn just as much from them as they learn from me. But the reality is they don't work for me. I work for them.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Brent, for being part of the Good We Share podcast. It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure getting to know you better, but to also better understand Benekiva, and now I know that it is the sacred chamber for beneficiaries, correct? Did I get that right?
Yep, sacred chamber for all beneficiaries. Yep.
Wonderful. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Brent.
All right. Thanks for having me.
This episode of the Good We Share podcast is brought to you by Benekiva. Your mission is to serve your members. At Benekiva, our mission is to help you do it effortlessly. Fraternal organizations pride themselves on care, community, and doing what's right. Benekiva strengthens that promise. We modernize claims and servicing by removing manual steps and speeding up decisions. We give your teams more time to support members when it matters most. With our Humanomation technology, we blend smart automation with real human empathy so every interaction feels personal, not transactional. Keep your mission moving with Benekiva. Learn more at benekiva.com.